Are you advertising on Etsy or thinking about advertising on Etsy? Do you want to know how much you should spend, what your daily budget should be on Etsy ads to be the most successful with them? This is what I'm going to talk about in today's podcast episode. Let's go. What is going on? Welcome back to the Handmade and Beyond podcast. I am your host, LL, hanging out with you, back with some good information, another really good episode for you. Today, I'm going to talk about setting an Etsy ads budget. I want to help demystify ads. I want to help give you the information that you can use to be successful if this is something that you want to do and if this is right for you and your Etsy business. So after this episode, you should have a really good understanding of not only Etsy ads, but what to do in your specific business to be successful with them if you choose to do that. Also, make sure you guys go and download my Etsy ads cheat sheet. It's going to give you a lot of the best practices and strategies and information that I talk about in this episode, as well as some additional information that's going to be really good, really helpful for you if you go the Etsy ads route and want a guide and want some strategy. So make sure you guys get that at handmadeandbeyond.com/Etsy ads. It's free. Download it. It's a couple pages, easy read, but it's also a good resource just to have handy. If you have questions, want to revert back and reconvene with some of this information that I'm going to talk about in today's episode. So let's dive into Etsy ads. Very contentious topic always. A lot of people get PO'd at Etsy ads when they don't work. You don't really hear people talking about how great they are when they do work, but you hear a lot of people complain about them not working, which is usually the case because obviously if they're working, you're not going to complain about them. So what are Etsy ads? To kind of take a step back, just so you guys know what they are, if you're not familiar with it. A lot of people aren't familiar with them or have no experience with them. So Etsy ads are basically the ability for you to advertise your listings within Etsy itself, not anywhere else. It's specific to Etsy. So you will advertise and promote your listings, and then they'll show up in search as advertised listings when people are looking. And you can go and look on Etsy, do a search for anything, you'll see pretty much like every second or third row is advertised listings. Those aren't organic listings, and they'll show as an Etsy ad. Those are advertised listings, and that's how yours would show up if you choose to do that. A lot of people confuse Etsy ads with off-site ads. This is another very contentious topic. Off-site ads are where Etsy takes your listings and advertises them off Etsy. They advertise them in Bing, Facebook, Google Marketplace, those platforms specifically. You don't have control over off-site ads as far as choosing which ones to advertise and which ones not to advertise. Offsite ads, you're automatically opted in for them if you have more than $10,000 in sales in a rolling 365-day period. You're automatically opted in. They will automatically find listings to advertise, and then you only pay a fee if those advertised listings sell up to a certain percentage. It's either going to be 12% or 15%, depending on if you are above that $10,000 mark or below that $10,000 mark. If you're above $10,000, you pay 12%. If you're below, you pay up to 15%. It's usually never that high. It varies on each sale how much you're going to spend. So you have, if you're over the $10,000 mark, you will automatically be opted in. If you're under, you can choose whether to be opted in or opted out. I've seen a lot of success with offsite ads. The return on ad spend is usually very good. You don't get a lot of sales, but the sales that I've been getting, the return has been very good. So those are the difference. So don't confuse the two. Offsite ads is separate from Etsy ads. Etsy ads, you have the control. You can set your budget, choose which listings to advertise. So those are the biggest differences, or those are the things that people get confused. Now, behind the scenes with as far as Etsy ads go, when you are using them, you set the budget, and then Etsy determines when to show those Etsy ads to people, and then you get charged when people click on the ad. This is the cost per click. They may not buy, but you will still get charged, and it'll come out of your budget if they click through to your listing. If they don't click, if they keep scrolling by, this just counts as a view. you don't get charged anything. You only get charged if they hit your picture and go into your listing. Hopefully they buy. Either way, you're getting charged a cost per click. And the cost per click varies. It can be as low as a couple of cents, as high as 40, 50 cents. The cost per click varies because there are a couple of factors, basically. How much competition is out there, the quality of your listing, your product price, and how well your listing has done in the past. How good is the conversion? If your conversion's high, you may pay a little bit higher of cost per click because Etsy wants to show that more times to an audience, more times because people are clicking into it and buying it. But you're going to have more sales too. So that can be a good thing. Your cost per click may be higher because your listing's not as good. And they're getting it out, trying to get it out in front of people. And you're not using the right keywords. So it's going to be a higher cost per click. So it varies. You really don't know what the cost per click is going to be. You can look at your stats, your Etsy ads stats, and kind of see what it is. But it does vary. But bottom line, that's what you're getting charged for. And that's what is using your ads budget is the cost per click. Back in the day, you could control how much cost per click you were willing to spend. Now you have no control over it. So another thing that people got upset about, it is what it is. It hasn't been that way for years now. I probably would say it's not coming back because Etsy wants control over that. They want the algorithm to do its thing. And that's just the way that it is. So that is kind of the overview of Etsy ads in a nutshell, kind of how they work. The next thing I want to talk about is, should you advertise? So before we get into the budget and all that stuff, should you actually be advertising? And this is what I've talked about this before as far as Etsy ads. A lot of people start advertising too soon when their shop is not ready. Their shop is too new. Their shop isn't set up appropriately. They don't have enough listings. Their SEO is not good. The keywords they're using is not good. Their shop sections aren't filled out. It does not fix bad listings. It does not fix a bad shop. It does not fix other problem areas that may be with your listings, your pricing, and all that stuff. So look at your shop and determine, is it the right time to advertise, or do I still need to work on my shop? Do I still need to clean stuff up, get more familiar with Etsy platform as it is, be more comfortable with what I'm doing within Etsy, making improvements, having a really good understanding of the platform, and making sure everything is set up correctly before I start throwing money at my shop that's going to go to waste because, again, it does not fix bad listings. You're just going to be throwing money away, and then you're going to be one of the people on the message boards moaning and griping because Etsy ads don't work. Well, they're not working because your shop is not set up right. It's a dumpster fire, as I like to say. So make sure your shop is ready. So look at your shop. Where are you at? Another good indicator is, are you getting organic sales? That's a good indication of you doing things right. If you're getting consistent organic sales, you're probably ready to start advertising if that's something that you want to do. If you're not getting any organic sales, then you're not doing things right. You don't have the right SEO. There's a reason you're not getting organic sales. Maybe your shop's too new. If your shop's not brand new, maybe there's other things. Usually it's keywords, targeting the wrong audience. There's another problem. There's something else going on there. You should be getting organic sales before you advertise. All right, so you're going to go through that process. If you're ready to run ads, the next question, of course, what is going to be my budget? How much money am I going to spend? So your budget, you can pick your budget, but Etsy does max out your budget. So if you're new, if you haven't used advertising before, I think they set the max budget at $50. It's either 50 or 100. I think it's 50. And then you start advertising it, they'll up it. They'll keep upping it the more you advertise, the longer you advertise. So they'll up it to 50 to 100 to 200 to 500. I'm not sure if there's a max of it. So I think it really just depends on the individual shop, how much they're advertising, what their budget is, how long they've been advertising. But you can get it up. They will start to raise it if you advertise. So that's number one, is you will have a limit to how much budget you can spend. And it's a daily budget. You set a budget of 50. That is $50 a day. So you gotta be willing to spend $50 a day if that's what you're setting your budget at. It may not use all of your budget. Frequently it doesn't, but it could. So keep that in mind. So a couple of questions to ask yourself when it comes to budget is, how many listings do you have? That is going to determine a lot of your budget. If you only have a couple of listings, A, maybe you shouldn't be advertising yet. B, you don't need as much of a budget if you don't have a lot of listings, or you're not going to advertising a lot. You're not going to advertise a lot of listings. So that plays into it. The next question is, out of those, however many listings do you have, are you going to advertise all your listings, or are you just going to pick? Maybe you just want to advertise your seasonal stuff for a specific season. Maybe you want to advertise your best sellers, or maybe you want to advertise all of your listings. So that is going to play a part in what your budget is going to be. The next thing also is, what's your profit margin on your listings? So if your profit margin is tight, you may not want to spend as much. And another thing to circle back, if you have a really tight profit margin, you may want to not advertise, or you may want to find a way to get a better profit margin, because that really cuts into the things that you can do. You can't, if you have a tight profit margin, it's really hard to advertise. It's really hard to run sales. It's really hard to give out coupon codes. It's hard to do the marketing stuff that works and has been proven to work time and time again. That's why I always tell people to look at your profit margin first and make sure it's decent before you kind of get in over your head and you're trying to rub two pennies together, or you're losing money because you didn't do your research and upfront and have a decent profit margin with your niche. So some good budget best practices are, once you get past those initial questions, here's some good best practices to follow. Keep in mind, every niche is different. Every shop is different. These are best practices, but I'm not going to sit here and beat you with a stick and say, do it this way always. It will always work. That's not the case. It's all about testing. It's all about trying stuff out. You can have a guideline, but you may have to pivot. You may have to do what's right for you versus other shops that do it another way. So keep that in mind. There's no one set way to do stuff. There's just best practices and guidelines, which I'm trying to give you, but you may need to tweak stuff. So the more listings, the higher budget usually. Less listings, less budget. Now, you may have a lot of listings, you still want to do a smaller budget, that's fine. Just understand that the results are going to be a lot slower because your budget is spread out over let's just say a couple hundred listings. That's going to take a while for the algorithm to start promoting those listings and having people see them, have people click on them, because it's spread out over all these listings. So if you want results and be able to see more data faster, you increase your budget. It may seem higher, but keep in mind, you're spreading it out over hundreds of listings. So a higher budget makes more sense than a lower budget that's spread out over a bunch of listings. And again, it may not spend all of your budget, but you'll get things moving a little bit faster. But if you're just starting out, you may want to do a smaller budget for a lot of listings. That's fine too. Just know that you're going to have to run it for a while before you start seeing what is happening. Because it's spread out over all these listings. They're not all going to get a lot of traffic, a lot of clicks. So you may be eating up that small budget for days, weeks, before you see any type of results, but you had a smaller budget. If you have a larger budget, that's going to tighten your window. The next thing is, I would recommend, if you're starting out, there's two viable options. You can either choose to advertise your best sellers only, or advertise all of your listings. Both ways I've seen work. Both ways are good strategies. Keep in mind though, it's funny, sometimes your best sellers organically don't do well when advertised. They'll eat up a lot of your budget and they don't make as many sales. I don't know why that is. It's not always that way, but keep in mind, just because they're your best sellers doesn't mean that when advertised they're going to do as well. They may do better, they may do worse. It's worth a shot. I always like to try and steer people to advertise all their listings first. Again, because some of the listings that do well organically don't do well when advertised, and vice versa. Some listings that don't do well organically do really well when advertised. I don't know why that is. It's really weird, but you don't want to miss out on those potential opportunities for listings to do well that don't do well organically. So it's a good indication to test out all your listings to see if there's ones in there, diamonds in the rough that do really well. And then over time, you can start to narrow down those listings. You're not going to advertise all your listings forever. You're going to go in and start turning off the listings that don't do well when advertised over time. But initially, if you do them all, you can kind of see and test them out and see what they're going to do. So I would say that another good best practice is as you're advertising listings, you need to you need to have them advertised for a while before you turn them off. So you need to set, and in the dashboard you can see what you're spending, like what the cost per click, the total is. So look at your profit margin, have in mind your max spend before you turn an advertised listing off that you're willing to spend to try to get a sale. So it may be a couple of dollars, it may be $5, it may be $10. So once you hit that mark, then you're like, okay, I'm not spending any more of this listing. I've spent $5 on it. It doesn't have any sales yet. I'm not going to spend any more because my profit margins don't allow me to spend more. And then you turn it off. So look at your own particular business, your profit margins, and have a number in your mind of what you're willing to spend before you turn it off. So if you're not close, it may take time. It may take months, many months to hit that mark, depending on the type of listing it is. So that's usually a good best practices. Another thing is don't keep changing your budget or advertise listings. So don't like turn your budget off and on, or up and down, turn listings on and off. That messes with the algorithm. You need to let it ride for a while. So slow and strategic. If you want to up your budget, do it slow. Do it by small increments over time. Don't change it from $5 to $50. No, that's going to mess with the algorithm. Do it slow and strategic over time. Once your listings have been advertised for a while, then you can start turning them off. Don't turn them off and on, because that's just going to eat your budget up, and you're going to see no positive result from that. Also, the last thing I want to talk about is, as far as best practices, make changes with your advertised listings either early in the morning or late at night. You don't want to make them in the middle of the day. That's when the algorithm is kicking, trying to put those listings in front of the right audience, trying to optimize them for clicks and sales. If you start making changes in the middle of the day, it's going to mess up your whole day. It's going to mess up the algorithm. It's going to mess up your whole day. So make them early or late before the traffic starts to come to Etsy. That's usually the best thing to do. So those are some of the best practices that you should stick to get the best results out of your listings that you're advertising and to help you set your budget. The other thing I want to talk about is use the tools, use the Etsy Ads dashboard that Etsy has for you. It gives you really good data. You can see your return on ad spend and your spend. Those are the two metrics that you probably want to look at the most. How much return are you getting on your ads? If you're spending $1 and getting $3 back, that's a pretty good return. But again, depending on your margins, maybe you need a 5, maybe you need a 5 times return or 7 times return. So keep that in mind. Your spend, like I said, you can sort by these metrics to see what ads are eating up the most of your spend. And then the ones that are eating up the most or over your limit, you can turn those off over time. The other thing is I recommend looking at this looking at your ads on a 30-day cycle. That gives you enough time to see what they're doing, if you're going to make any changes or not, and also prevent you from making changes too quickly. So this is why you got to be comfortable with your budget and be comfortable letting it ride to kind of see how it's going to perform. So those are the main things that I wanted to talk about. But I want to, as far as Etsy ads and your budget, but I have a couple final thoughts for you, kind of some final tips for you as far as Etsy ads. The first one is it's important to monitor your ads, and you can make SEO changes, keyword changes to try and get them to perform better, but don't sabotage your organic sales. If you have advertised listings that are doing well organically, don't change them just to make them try and do better when advertised. That doesn't make any sense. Just let them go. Just stop advertising them and ride the organic wave. All right. So don't sabotage your organic sales. If they're not selling organically, not selling when advertised, then you can fair game, have at it. Rework that listing, try to get it to sell, but just don't sabotage it if it's already doing well. The next thing is ads aren't right for every person, every niche, or every business. You don't have to use them to be successful. So don't feel the pressure. Don't feel like everyone's doing them. You're not doing them. That's not why you're successful. No, there's probably deeper issues going on. Again, Etsy ads will only ever make up a small portion of your sales. You won't be able to advertise and have them make up 80% of your sales, 90% of your sales, and then you can just, ride the wave and, see the money roll in. It doesn't work like that. They are usually a much smaller portion of your sales. I would say probably 10 to 20% of your sales, maybe. And again, that will vary between niche, but just keep that in mind. So you can get away with not advertising. Don't feel the pressure. If it's not the right time, you're not ready yet, take your time with it. Make sure you're getting your ducks in a row, your shop in order before you decide to advertise. The next thing is seasonality does play a role. So keep in mind with your niche, some niches, some listings are seasonal. You may want to choose to advertise them only on a specific season to capitalize on that traffic. Outside of that, they will just eat up your budget and not do well because there's no traffic looking for them. The next thing is ads can speed up your success, or they can be a money pit. So kind of all the things I've talked about before leads to this. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to, money is tight for small business owners. You don't want to be unnecessarily spending money. Again, usually this happens if you get the cart in front of the horse and you're advertising when you shouldn't be advertising. And the last thing I want to leave you with is the ad platform has changed greatly in the last couple of years, and it will continue to do so. So the way it is now will not be the way that it is a week from now, months from now. Etsy's going to continue to refine it, continue to change it, hopefully for the better, but it's something you have to be aware of, be mindful of, stay ready, and stay vigilant. Like the Etsy ad platform is a criminal out there. You got to watch for it. But change is inevitable when selling online. So keep that in mind. I almost drank my coffee in the middle of this episode. Thought I was just talking to a random person instead of doing a podcast episode. So those are the main things I want to talk about. Hope that helps you guys out when it comes to Etsy ads. Gives you some good information. All this stuff is based on my own personal experiences, what I've seen, what I've done. Also, make sure you guys get that Etsy ads cheat sheet at handmadeandbeyond.com/Etsy ads. It's free and it should help you guys out. But that is it. If you guys like these episodes, please give me a like, share, comment. Any feedback is appreciated, but I'll be back soon with some more good episodes to help you guys out with your Etsy business. Have an amazing rest of your day.